Hello, rock stars! Matt Vanderbo here. Hey, one of the things I do as a moonlighting gig is I teach communication classes at the College of Western Idaho, which is a local community college out here where I live. A long time ago, I was a full-time professor at Boise State University where I taught a handful of communication classes, but I let that job go when I started making more money from royalties on my music than I made as a full-time professor. One of the things I always had a blast with teaching students was a lesson about first impressions, especially when it comes to giving a public speech. And I would share studies that had been done that showed that people create a first impression on someone else within 7 seconds. And I always told my students that 7 seconds seemed pretty dang generous because in my mind, I thought that it would be closer to 3 to 5 seconds. Well, it turns out I'm right. In fact, I'm wrong, but more right than I thought. Because in 2006, a couple of researchers from Princeton University ran a bunch of studies and found out that we make first impressions within 1/10 of a second. That is instantaneous. Okay, so in my classes, I would have the students walk to the front of the class and I would click the stopwatch and I would have them deliver the opening lines of the speech they'd been working on. Do you know how far 5 seconds got them? Not very. Like the first sentence, maybe into the second sentence, and that was it. And the lesson I wanted to impart to them was how important it was for the very first words out of your mouth to be awesome. In fact, it didn't even have to be words. It could be an action, but something had to be awesome right out of the gates because that would determine whether the rest of the class was going to listen to the rest of your speech or whether they were going to spend the next 7 minutes scrolling through Instagram on their phone. Now, you may be wondering, great, Matt, this is all fine and dandy, but what in the heck does this have to do with music production? Turns out more than you think. And if you stick with me on this video, we will discuss why the first 3 to 5 seconds are the make or break moments of your music that could determine whether you make money or get tossed to the garbage pile. You ready? Let's dive in. Woo! Okay, so if we've got 3 to 5 seconds, now we're gonna use my numbers here, despite the fact that I have never actually done field studies on first impressions. But if the real field study data says 1/10 of a second to 7 seconds, then my numbers fall somewhere in the middle. In fact, let's average that. 3 to 5 seconds, let's say 4 seconds. You've got 4 seconds to make an initial first impression on an editor. How far does 4 seconds get you in your music? Not very far. But we can be much more specific than not far. In fact, we can run the numbers. Let's take a tempo of 90 beats per minute, which is a pretty standard tempo for reality TV music. 90 beats a minute will cover genres as diverse as hip hop to rock to emotional to indie folk. 90 BPM is a pretty standard tempo. Okay, so at 90 beats per minute, you get 1.5 beats of music per second. So within 4 seconds, you actually get 6 beats of music. How far does 6 beats get you? Well, if you are doing a 2-beat lead-in, oh, and by the way, I'm gonna do a whole video on lead-in, so stay tuned for that. But let's say you've got 2 beats that lead into your track, and it could be two quick drum hits, it could be a 2-beat reverse cymbal swell, it could be a bass slide, it could be any number of things, but it's probably going to be, if you're doing it right, about 2 beats of music. Okay, so there goes 2. You've got 6 beats total, so the other 4 would be your first measure. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is it. Your fate rests upon your first measure of music. Okay? So you have to make the case in the first measure as to whether your track is a good one that is worth listening to beyond 4 seconds and maybe even being auditioned into the project. How do you do that? Well, go back and watch this video on the King, Queen, Jack, Ace strategy, and you'll get some helpful tips there. But really what you want to do is get out of the habit of doing any type of long-winded lead up into your music. If it takes you 2 bars to get to the goods, then the editor is never going to hear the good part because they've already moved on to the next piece of music. So what I would like you to do is go into your catalog of TV cues or even songs that you've made, and I want you to see how captivating the first 4 seconds are in every piece of music that you've made. And once you do that, you may find that you've already been employing this strategy, or you may find that you've inadvertently killed any chances of success in this business. I've asked you guys to do this before in videos, but I'm gonna ask you to do it again, so bear with me. But I want you to put yourself in the shoes of an editor at a TV show. Let's say a reality TV show. Okay, they've got their video all laid out on the screen before them, and now their job is to put music onto the video. So what they are going to do is they're going to open up their folders or their bins, and they are going to audition or preview different pieces of music and determine whether or not those have the right vibe or the right feel. And here, this is where you're only getting 4 seconds. But the way they're clicking on those tracks at the beginning is a little tricky one. So I want you to watch these videos on why a title is so important. But if you've watched those videos, then of course you know how you should title your tracks. And so if your music is passing that eyeball test, it's getting clicked on, now the music has to speak for itself, and you've got 1 bar to do it. Okay, if that editor likes your piece of music, then they'll probably drag it into the project and see how it aligns with the video. And if it sounds okay, they are probably just going to leave it in there. Okay, this is not a situation where these people have infinite amounts of time to find the perfect thing. They are just going to find something that works, even if there might be better options down the road. They just don't have time to get to them. Reality shows are largely made under the gun. And what I mean by that is they are up against deadlines all the time. These things are coming out so fast, and they go from filming to post-production editing to music placements, and all that happens right before a show goes on the air. These people have their backs against the wall. They don't have time to dilly-dally. And so they are just going to click. They're going to listen to 4 seconds of music based on the title. They're going to eventually find something that works. They're going to drag it in the project. And if it solves their problem, boom, you're done. You're probably getting paid. But those first 4 seconds of your music are the make or break. So when they listen to it, it has to resonate with them somehow. And I don't mean that you need to start off with the crazy guitar solo or the most bombastic drum fill or a screaming high trumpet note. You just need to say, this is what my music is. And those first 4 seconds have to represent the rest of the piece. If they don't, then you're gone. And if it took you longer than 4 seconds to even get into the meat of the piece at all, then you are certainly gone. All right, so you've got 4 seconds, or what equates to 2 beats of a lead-in and 1 bar of music to make some magic happen. But if you can make those first 4 seconds powerful, then you stand a much better chance of landing a placement in a TV show. I hope you got something great and useful out of this video. And if you actually did the homework assignment that I gave earlier about listening to all your music for 4 seconds to see if it passes that initial first impression stage, I'd like you to drop something in the comments if you could, and just tell me whether or not you are already doing great or whether you are failing that 4-second test abysmally. And hey, if you're failing, that's okay, because you're not going to fail from here on out. Now that you know how important the first 4 seconds are, you'll never make that same mistake again. Okay, so please stick around for more videos. Keep making great music, get those placements, and get that money, baby! Let's go!